88.8 FM.
Good morning, listeners and viewers everywhere. Gosh, we've got a special show for you this morning, haven't we, Jalf?
Absolutely, we have. Good morning, everybody.
So for a change, we're here, we're together, and it's and the sun's shining. And anyway, you're listening to Ammar and
Jalf
live on our weekly radio show. Let me adjust this a little bit, Jalf, so we'll get you in.
And each week we bring some views, news, and one or two clues from the business world.
Asian Business Connections aims to connect, support, and promote the Asian and wider communities.
And we'll be talking shop quite literally, and not just corner shops. So they're looking to start a business, have an existing business, or you just want to talk business, we can help.
We can help, and we do help. Gosh, it's been a very interesting time, Jalf, hasn't it?
Well, it has been for the last couple of years, but there's always seems to be big news on the news at this moment in time.
Which is what?
Well, obviously the things in Ukraine seems to take up a lot of time, but more recently the train strikes is featured heavily in the news the last few days. I think it's caused a lot of disruption around the country to a lot of people. Haven't really followed too much of it, but it seems to be a government versus the unions, and as opposed to being kind of it seems to be both sides are against the strikes, which is quite unusual because Labour are usually
well, no, Labour have sat on the fence a little bit, to be honest, and probably because of by-elections and things like that as well.
Yeah,
if you think about it, there were two by-elections, which interestingly and curiously, everybody appears to be blaming Boris for, rather than the two MPs who had, one was caught watching porn, right?
okay.
So one of the MPs had been caught watching porn in the Houses of Parliament.
Instead of doing a civil duties for us.
Right? And the other one was convicted of a criminal offence. And I just find it extraordinary that everybody's blaming Boris.
Yeah.
And I'm not defending him. I'm just putting things into context.
Well,
as in, or trying to.
You're
as
the
in,
leader, the buck stops with you, doesn't
well,
it?
okay. But I mean, gosh, Jalf, you go off and murder lots of people, or one of your members of staff go off and murder lots of people, God forbid. Is that your fault?
Yeah, of course it isn't. It's unfortunately something that we probably have to manage, though.
Okay. What? As in, how do you manage that?
Well,
do you then go up? Right, okay, I'm going to bring these people back to life. For
you've got to manage the consequences.
Gosh, the buck stops with the leader, absolutely, right? But at the same time, the indiscretions of a team that the leader had no control over. He didn't have control. What? That was his fault. That he was one of his MPs was sat in the Houses of Commons watching porn. Really? Well, imagine, Jalf, what? By association. So somebody's watching one of your members of staff watching porn in your restaurant, right? And then naturally you would sack them. That's what you would do as a leader, wouldn't you?
I mean,
but is that your fault that they were watching porn?
Yeah,
No, but okay. Well, would you? All right, your members of staff, going back to that crazy off the cuff comment, right? Your members of staff, our member of staff has gone out and murdered lots of people. God forbid.
Yeah.
You get arrested. How would you feel?
Well, of course, it's
So is it now your fault?
No, it's not, and it's not Boris's fault either. But my point is, if there is that type of incident that does happen, it would be my responsibility to deal with the impact on the business, on the restaurant, on the rest of the team, how we move forward. So there is still a lot of work for Boris to be responsible for.
And he's
But it's not.
Anyway, I mean, I'm just playing devil's advocate. This isn't.
Not this particular. I could say that not this particular one is on his head.
Yeah, I just feel as if, like, there's and the other thing is recognizing that there is, in fact, as a team, right? If you're unhappy with who's leading your organization, then you should do something about it, right? But what's more important is that you operate as a team, right? And deal with internal politics internally.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I think it's definitely the best way for that to happen. But I think the Conservative Party, though, obviously they weren't happy with the leader. A lot of members weren't. More people voted on the no confidence vote against Boris than what they did with Theresa, and Theresa eventually went. So Boris is left for how long, we don't know.
Yeah, well, we don't know. Anyway, I certainly wasn't defending Boris at all. I was simply playing devil's advocate. I think lots of people sadly lost confidence in a number of things. I equally do think that there are really critical issues that are being sort of not prioritized as much as they could or should because of politics being played.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So inflation, cost of living, world global catastrophes, a whole range of things that are happening.
It's definitely unprecedented times for humanity at the moment, and you just hope that the leaders make the decisions which is there to benefit humanity overall, and hopefully at some point, they will come to that conclusion, because it looks as though at this moment in time, everyone's there for their own interests, not for the greater good of humanity. So hopefully common sense prevails at some point.
Yeah. Anyway, we had the Curry Club last night, Jeff, at Brew and Dolphin, and it was another incredible event. Yesterday was a very interesting day for me, having got up particularly early. Actually, I'll roll back to last week. So last week I went off to the NHS conference in Liverpool.
And how was that?
Jam-packed, great couple of days. Sergeant Javid was there, Amanda Pritchard, various other people's. But it was just good to get a better, broader understanding of what's going on in our health service and those stakeholders associated with them, given how much work I'm now doing in this area around innovation. And that was really good. And then from there, I travelled across to Doncaster. So it was a hard few days, taking 2-3 days out of the office.
Yeah.
Just can't afford to do. Even taking one day is difficult. But then went to Doncaster and met Rishi. He was incredible.
Rishi Sunak.
Yeah. So at the dinner, I was talking to him, mentioning about the work that we're doing at ABC, all of the great things that are happening here in the greatest region in the world. Yeah. And he was genuinely interested. Mm-hmm. But then when he spoke, he actually, so we all sort of, spoke to him, and the guys had introduced, I've met him before, but the guys introduced him purposefully to me to talk about a few things, because it was about Northeast and it was all about the North. But then when he gave his speech at the dinner, right, it was one of the best political He's one of the best political speakers I've ever heard.
He is brilliant, Rishi Sunak.
I was like blown away with his confidence, his competence, and his capability. Like genuinely, he just sort of stitched everything together, but very cohesively, very clearly, and he was very compassionate. And I was sat next to Hazel Blears, who's a really colourful but a lovely person. An old Labour minister, one of the top leaders of her time. Introduced lots of policies, community-led policies and things like that. Anyway, it was a fantastic event. Met so many significant business owners, leaders, organizations, and it was great. It was really good. And then the next day I spoke on a panel about the North and remaking the economy and enterprise and things like that. And it was fantastic because I love our region, and there were 29 MPs from the North there, Jalf. As in they were all there on the day. Everyone's talking about sort of how do you level up the North and versus the South and things like that. So anyway, it was really, really good. And then jumped on the train again and came back, and I was exhausted, really exhausted, but it was really worthwhile, I felt, from doing that. And then yesterday, I sort of done what I'd done 3 days in 1 day. So yesterday, I was talking at a VIP breakfast at People Power event, first thing at 8 o'clock. I then was at this conference and then done some work in between. And then I spoke and delivered a session at that conference later on. I then left there to go home to get a shower because it was really hot. And obviously I'm telling you my life story, but it was really hot. And got changed, done a Superman type of thing, ran in the house, ran back out. We had the Curry Club, and it was fantastic to hear from Fatima Patel, Asian Standard, Bruin Dolphin, a great turnout with great advocates. And then I ran away from there to the Law Awards, where I was judging and presenting 2 awards.
All right. Where was that at?
At the Hilton.
Okay.
So I was then sort of doing speeches and giving out 2 awards there.
Excellent.
So that was like from a very early start to a very late one. It was after 11 o'clock.
What time are you done?
Yeah. That's a hard day.
Long day, long day.
3 different big events.
Especially
I don't know who scheduled them in.
You're
like
up at
that.
what, 5 in the morning, 6 in the morning?
Yeah. 5. But it was more doing one of those things on any day would be challenging. Doing 3, where you're actively involved, as in you're presenting, you're talking, you're facilitating, you're judging, you're doing all of these things. And you're literally going from my head's at this space, and then my head's at that space, and then my head's at that space. Anyway.
I just like to say, I mean, it's something that we try to teach our team at work, the mental strength that's required, and the discipline and the mental strength is so important to be able to do what you've just explained. And with that mental strength, you're not going to be able to achieve anything in the working world these days, because it is so challenging.
Oh, undoubtedly. And then at the People Power event, we talked about Yola and our world first qualification in business model innovation, and it was incredible the response. So these are people, lots of people doing innovation already in organizations, John. And your point there around sort of mental strength, and it was really interesting because at the People Power event yesterday, Sam Conniff, a really good guy, met him a few years back. He wrote a book, how to be more pirate, right? And it was like how you go and disrupt and things like that. And really great
Good
guy.
book.
Yeah, good book. Really good guy.
He's a good speaker, very good speaker.
Excellent, excellent. So he was there yesterday lunchtime, and he's like, "Oh no, you know, it was like wonderful to see him and things like that." Anyway, he wrote this book, and I remember his story because it was all about being more pirate. Yeah, this is how you be more pirate, and this is how you disrupt things. And Penguin, he wrote this book of Penguin, and Penguin had done very little to promote him, and then he saw Fly posted all of Penguin's offices with "Be More Pirate," and it was like I was about to lose my publisher on the day that I was publishing my book, and it went to the market. Anyway, and he's a fantastic speaker, and it's all about sort of, you know, that agility, that support, and things like that. But anyway, he then sort of explained his COVID journey, and it was all around becoming more tolerant to uncertainty. So rather than being resilient, right? So resilience is the ability to bounce back, is the ability to adjust. And rather than being resilient, he argues, and has done some research, and he's done like a Netflix type of series and things like that. Anyway, he's done an incredible speech with some amazing exercises and showcased all of these individuals who reinforced that the single best and biggest thing you can do is become more comfortable at being uncomfortable. Right? So become more comfortable at being uncomfortable, because things like COVID and all of that, what they've showed and what they've demonstrated is it's your ability to tolerate uncertainty that will provide you with the right approach to get through things. So if you're on, you know, as in being uncertain, you as an individual, if there's an outcome that there's no certainty about, you almost feel like helpless, hopeless. There's like, I have no control. So it's how you make yourself and adjust yourself to go, all right, I appreciate I don't have any control over that, but what can I do to feel a bit more comfortable in that circumstance rather than fear? So how do you overcome that fear of uncertainty that exists? Anyway, it was great. It was fantastic, and it just reinforced our program that we've created, which is I can give you some tools, Jack. So we regularly on our radio show, we talk about business model canvas and value proposition and marketing, and you know, here's an approach that you can take. So, and you go, all right, yeah, that makes sense. And you get a lot of that because, you know, you're very innovative and things like that, but other people might not. So I give you a tool, right? I'll give you a spanner. Yeah. So let's just say you've never used a spanner, you don't know what a spanner is. I give you a spanner. And you go, all right, I've got a tool. And people naturally go, I've got a tool, I can do something with it, right? But it's the next step of that is I'll give you the skills. So I'll teach you how to use the tool. So you go to school, you go to college, you go to university, you go to training programs, all of these type of things. They're good at two things. One, they'll give you the tools. So, you know, when I did my MBA or whatever it was all these principles and Porter's 5 forces and this and that. And when you're doing your marketing degrees and things like that, you know, here's all of these tools and here's all of these principles. And then they explain them to you. So you got an understanding. So you developed your skills associated with it. But the one thing that you never ever get, usually, is the mindset, right? someone might give you the tools and might tell you how to use the tools, but unless they change your belief and your behavior in yourself and your ability to influence others and the environment around you, you're never ever really going to use those tools. So we've developed the tool set, the skill set, and the mindset to succeed.
They're like vital part of any business.
That's a triangle, right? As in your point around your staff. I mean, you could go in and bring in the best person. Well, you did, right? You brought in the chef. You brought in the world-class chef to create your business model. And you could tell those that really were passionate and interested was because of their belief and their behavior, right? I want to learn from this guy, he's amazing, and I want to apply it and whatever else. And then you may have had others who go, he's great, good, but actually, I'm all right, I don't want to learn.
Well, I think that's the whole thing that we battle because of the sheer number of staff that we have. We find that, you've got the minority who have the mentality that you've stated firstly, and secondly, the majority, it's all a battle because they want to do their own thing, and unfortunately the own thing is not the right way of conducting themselves in a business. So it's very, very challenging. We just feel that we have to do a lot of practical development of individuals because unfortunately in today's academic systems, and that's kind of global, it's not just in the UK because we have international students from all cultures and countries, they all seem to have the same mentality and they're mentally very, very vulnerable. And our point is that if you don't maintain your mental discipline and mental strength throughout your entire shift, because you're in a public space, serving the public, dealing with the public, you could do something really silly and you could put the public in danger because let's say you're serving a piping hot coffee or a tea and you don't follow the disciplines that we've taught you in terms of how you serve how you hold a tray and how you serve the actual drink, and you have a spillage on an individual, you could create severe burns. And that's the kind of thing that we try and teach them, and we are finding it's more and more challenging because you teach it and then they forget, then you have to teach it again and again and again, and it looks as though that we're constantly knocking at the team, but it's just that mentally they're not as strong as maybe the previous generation was, and I think that's quite evident. Also, there is less individuals that do want to kind of really, really learn and want to kind of develop and progress, and you feel as though you have to push that out of them as opposed to that being the self-intuition or that hunger and that desire seems to be a lot less. So there are things that you make, the points that you're making, it's so important for anybody, whether it's your business organizations or individuals, to understand and take those points on board, because that is the route to success in today's challenging business environments.
Undoubtedly, and it's based on sort of working with and delivering hundreds, thousands of programs. So we've looked at what are the best skill set, tool set, and what type of mindset should you grow, because you have to grow your mindset. People imagine that they can't change things, right? And lots of people go, well, I've always done it like this, and this is the only way I want to do it. And your day is spent usually doing exactly the same things in exactly the same way without looking at or reflecting, is this the best way of doing this? And how often do we say, all right, I'm going to try something new? Genuinely. I'm speaking very openly right now, but regularly I get invited to events and I'll sort of go, I'm a bit tentative. I don't know whether I want to go or not. Actually, I'm a bit tentative. and it'll get close to the event, and I'll feel a bit uncomfortable, and I might go, actually, and they'll go, oh, are you coming or not? Can you let us know, please? And as a matter of courtesy, you need to let people know. And 9 times out of 10, you'll go no. No, how many times do I say to you, come and do something, and your response is, oh, I'm too busy?
Yeah.
Seriously, as in, that, and everybody's the same, right?
Yeah.
Everybody's too busy. Yet you will always make the time to do what you must do. Right? Always. Whatever it is, whatever the circumstance, you will always do that. So by looking at some of this must do approach of, you know what, I'm going to try one new thing every single day. Can be anything. Can be anything. I'm going to try a different route. I'm going to try a different path. I'm going to try different food. I'm just going to try and watch something that I wouldn't. I'm going to try and listen to Radio 4 rather than 5. I'm going to, as in all of these type of things, seriously. And you're broadening your horizons. You're starting to learn new things. And you're doing incredible things for yourself, though. And that's the thing. As soon as you start thinking about yourself and supporting yourself, so one of my top secrets that I've started to share with lots of people is this gratitude attitude, Jack. And it's just being grateful. But it's giving yourself 5 minutes. So throughout the day, gift yourself 5 minutes.
And what would you do with that 5 minutes?
So when you wake up, the first thing you do is this, Jack. So I'm going to show you my inner secret. So every single day, this is my daily update, tells me, and I write down what I'm grateful for.
Wow.
And at the end of every day, I write down what was a win. Right? So that is top secret. And I do that every single day. Yeah?
It's really good that you can do it.
Is the thing. And I do that in, so 1 minute, first thing I do is write down something that I'm very grateful for. And round about coming to the office, and I've already worked quite a bit, and I will take 1 minute out. You got Apple Watch?
I can't afford those things anymore.
Anyway,
Casio.
yeah, I've seen your Casio. Around about 9 o'clock, I just set a timer, and I take 1 minute, and I close my eyes for a minute. Just 1 minute. You're not going to fall asleep, are you? But anyway, if you do, great.
I was really, do you know what? I was based on what you're saying. The other day I was in the office, and I don't have a office. My office is a quarter the size of this, and I was thinking I could really just nod off here, but you just can't.
Why?
I would love to just, because if I'm in my office, one of the other managers comes in and see me sleeping. Imagine one of your members of your staff that come in here and you're sleeping away. They can be thinking, hold on, the inspirational leader's asleep. And he's expecting us to push the empire and
and he's like sleeping on the job.
Sleeping on the job. So it's just not possible.
Yeah. So 1 minute in the morning, right? So the first thing you do is you get up and you write down something that you're grateful for. And that feeling of being grateful, do you need to fall asleep now then? That feeling of being grateful releases positive energy, Jeff. Right? You go, right, I'm sort of going to relax a little bit, and I'm going to feel good because I'm thinking positive things. Whenever you think positive things, right? You feel positive,
Yeah, of course.
you feel
Absolutely.
better.
Yeah,
So
you
you're
do.
starting the day in a good mental way. So the first thing is write down something that you're grateful for. Can be anything. Can be anything. I'm grateful for my lovely quilt.
Mhm.
Right? I'm grateful to have a window that I can open and it lets the air in. Right? Because there's people who haven't got a window. But it's not about other people. It's about you. What are you grateful for? And it can be absolutely anything. And then in the morning, whatever time suits, take a minute. Right? Normally, for me, it's about 9 o'clock-ish. And I literally set a timer on whatever you've got, your Casio, your phone, for a minute. Close your eyes and concentrate on your breathing.
Mhm.
Concentrate on your breathing for 1 minute, just 1 minute. Do the same lunchtime, do the same tea time, and then the last thing you do before you go to bed is write down something that was a win, that was a good thing that happened that day, whatever it is. Might have just been the dinner that you had. It was a really tasty dinner, or a customer complimented you, or you managed to do something off your to-do list that you hadn't, or whatever it is. Anything, anything. Write that down. That's 5 minutes, John, out of all of your day. 5 minutes. And that behavior, after 3 weeks, is ingrained, it's embedded, and it starts helping you become a more positive person. Then you can just grow that. But start with, you don't even need to start with 5 minutes. Take one. If you can't gift yourself 1 minute, there's something wrong. I argue if you can't gift yourself 5 minutes in this world, there's something wrong. But let's just say, you just can't, don't want to do that. You're struggling with that. Just start the day by writing something down. You can even grab your phone and just put it in there. It doesn't need to be in your calendar. It doesn't need to be on your iPad. It doesn't need to be in a notepad. It can be anything, anywhere. Just write it down.
Cool. Excellent.
So that's what you need to do.
Get a positive start to the day every single day.
Every single day. So, what's going on? Newcastle United?
Yes. I mean, we got a second signing yesterday. Nick Pope, goalkeeper from Burnley.
Is he any good?
He's an England international. Yeah, he's good. I think he's one of the top 5 keepers in the Premier League probably. So, he's up there. He's up there with the better keepers. So I think it's going to be a good, healthy competition between the two, because Martin Dubravka is a very good goalkeeper as well. But I think Nick Pope's probably just going to have the edge on Martin. So I think it's a good signing, stable signing. Obviously, there's still a couple of others in the pipeline, but I think they're finding it difficult to push them through. They eventually will, but I think the agents are just taking them round and round in circles a bit. And that's Hugo Ekitike, who's a young French forward, and there's another Dutch under 21 international defender called Sven Botman. So those are the two that we, the public, are aware of. I'm sure there's others that they're working on behind the scenes, which we're not aware of. Which, if they do develop, they'll obviously come into the media's attention. I think the signs for the city and the club is amazing. I bumped into Stephen Patterson, who's the chief executive of NE1, and he was just explaining the impact that the 15,000 extra people coming into the city centre to work when the new offices are going to get built where the old Odeon cinema was, and the impact that that's going to have on the city. The conference centre, I'm out on the other side of the river, just in front of the Millennium Bridge, 15,000 capacity, world-class. They're going to have world-class facilities with a view to compete with the likes of Manchester and London for conferences such as the Conservative Conference and Labour Conference, and lots of other business events in the future. So it's going to have the facilities that we don't have in the city to accommodate events and bring in a lot more people into the city. I think I envisage once a football starts to take shape and it becomes, we start to have a higher profile and higher profile players, the image of Newcastle in the eyes of the world would be very different as well. So that will attract a lot more tourists into the city. But I just feel that the city is definitely on the up in terms of the additional facilities that the city are trying to establish within it. So I think, yeah, I think that the city, things are very positive at the moment, for sure.
You can't cough, can you?
Cough.
Cough. I think it's fantastic to see all of the positivity in the city. It's much needed. And one of the things that I highlighted about yesterday at the lower wards and the various other events was very much people coming together to celebrate one another, Jalf. I thought it was wonderful.
Yeah.
I think it's a really big deal, is what it is. And we should be encouraging more of it. One of the things I did highlight and noticed last week was, if you go to Liverpool, and the fact that I'm still hung up and hung over the City of Culture, if you look at their conferencing facilities, they can host hundreds of thousands of people. So you've got, used to be Manchester, it's now Liverpool, but there isn't anything over here. And we're desperate for a proper conference centre with a real good capacity. And that happening on Gateshead will undoubtedly create an environment that enables more inward-based activities as well.
I think it's a fantastic location to have it, for those coming into the city, coming and coming to a conference centre on the banks of the river, right in front of the Millennium Bridge, is going to be brilliant. You got the Baltic on the to its right, and you've got the Sage to its left, and you're just surrounded by some wonderful buildings. Probably one of the beautifulest locations in the city.
Sure, without a doubt. Without a doubt. So, anyway, you're listening to Ammar and
Jalf
live on our weekly radio show. So we have got a business topic of the week. Jalf, let's have a look at this. It's and I will show and share this, so you can either read the presentation, which is there, or you can read the script, whatever you decide. Jalf.
Okay. Financial terms, money.
Yeah. Yeah.
Business is all about money.
So are you reading that one there?
So do you want me to start, or do you want me to start?
All right, okay, great. Yeah, I'll start. So, business topic of the week. I'm sure we need a catchy jingle thing. So 10 financial terms that it is important to understand. So failing to understand your finances can cause real difficulties in running your business. The good news is you don't need to be a mathematical genius to stay on top of your financial basics. Here are 10 terms to learn to help you master your finances.
Excellent. I think these are actually very, very important, and you're probably going into business. I don't know where you would kind of learn this from. So some people learn on the hoof, but I think it's going to be great, and it's going to be great for me just to go through these again, because probably haven't come across these for a long time, although I deal with it on a day-to-day basis. Overheads, the fixed cost of operating your business. You still have to pay them even when you sell nothing. So try to keep the fixed costs low.
It's a great point, right, Jalf?
Yeah, it is. And
as in, things like examples of overheads, Jalf?
Rent.
Yeah, rates,
utility bills. Having, and another thing is the partnership with ABC and Great Annual Savings. It's been brilliant because they kind of had the foresight to advise us that have a long contract, have a 5-year contract, and that's been a godsend, especially in this climate.
Oh, crazy.
So that's just give you another example of how you can benefit from getting some great advice that we've got a platform there to help individuals with. And by understanding the real importance of these fixed costs, if you're negotiating a new lease, be mindful of really negotiating hard with the landlord, having a lease for 5 years, so you have some kind of a fixed term situation. So these are the fixed costs that you should really understand. Variable costs. These are incurred only when you produce something and are directly proportional to your sale, for example, raw material costs.
So in your example, Jalf, supply of ingredients.
Food costs.
Yeah. Salaries?
To an extent, and that's why you got the
Fixed and variable.
Yes, yeah. You got the flexible employees and you got the salaried employees. So you have a 2-tier payment system. So you have those that do the salaries, they're fixed in terms of the hours that they do, but then you have another group of individuals where it's flexible. So if it's quiet, you can send them home to save money. So that's a 2 type of cost. And then you have drinks and any other in the, if you're building houses, your raw material costs would be all the your timbers, your electrical costs, all those goods associated with it. So that's the variable costs. Profit. Generally, profit is the value of your sales less the associated variable cost, less a proportion of your overhead cost. Forgetting to factor in your own overheads could lead to you getting into the red.
So profit is the value of your sale less the associated variable cost and a proportion of the overhead cost. So all too often, people go, I'm going to buy these ingredients, or I'm going to buy this product, and I'm going to sell it at that rate, and don't take into account a whole range of things, including their own time. Right? Because as an entrepreneur, you just don't price up your time as the business owner, usually. And the most important thing is you need to, because if you don't, you could be sat there going, oh, look at all of this profit that I've made. And then all of a sudden you pay your taxes, you pay all of these other things that are coming out, and you go, well, I'm left with a penny.
Yeah.
And it's like, I can't survive on that. So you must, if you are a business owner, think about how you are going to pay yourself and in what shape, fashion, or form. Ideally, you should be taking a bit of a salary through the accounts. I tend to take the vast majority of my salary, which is ridiculous from a tax point of view, to put it openly, but that's how I operate. Because I'm also of the view that if anything happened to me, I'd have to bring somebody else in, and at least we factored in that overhead.
What Ammar's just explained there, that's not, the textbooks won't tell you about that caveat, about your own time. So that's really important advice that you should take into consideration, because there are individuals that would try and go to some textbooks to get this information and may not, and miss that very important valid point that you've just made. Cash flow. Make sure you keep on track your incoming and outgoing cash. Keep a spreadsheet and try to phase your income meet your predicted outgoings.
So people tend to look at, here's my profit and loss, right? Here's income in, here's income out type of thing. What they don't tend to look at necessarily all of the time, it's really good practice, is cash flow. So you may, in a service industry or where you're issuing invoices, you may be sat there looking at your system and going, I've just issued £10,000 worth of invoice, but I'm all right. But actually, some of those invoices may not get paid for 30 days, and your rent, your rates, your various other overheads both fixed and variable, might be due. And unless you have the cash to pay for them, you can fundamentally go bust. So be very careful on how you manage your cash flow.
Yeah. Next one, balance sheet and profit and loss. These are reports of your accounting software will produce. Always look at the year-to-date figure as well as the last month's performance. You cannot judge success on the strength of a month alone.
So balance sheet and profit and loss, looking at where you are now, as well as how you're getting on throughout the year. And do use, in fact, HMRC, so the tax people who are responsible for collecting taxes now have made VAT and various other taxable approaches digital. So you ideally need a system, and the system, it's good practice to have a system.
Factoring, a way of getting paid straight away by passing a customer's debt to a factor. The factor gives you the cash when you raise an invoice and then collects the debt from your customer. You can sometimes get 80% upfront. The bad news is that the factors usually expect you to guarantee the debt. They will also charge you an interest.
Yeah, so factoring, thinking about that cash flow challenges and such like, basically it's a financial facility. It's a tool that lots of companies can and do use. So let's just say your terms with your customers are 60 days. And in some circumstances 90 days. However, to manage your cash flow, you could do with getting that money sooner. So lots of banks and lots of financial institutes do offer a factoring facility. So as soon as you've issued the invoice, that is, legally a contract to say you've delivered a service or product, and in doing so, that money is due to you. However, the terms may not be ideal for your business. So you can then pass on that debt to somebody else. They'll get paid, but whilst they're waiting for their 30, 60 days, they'll pay you 80% of the invoice and charge anywhere between 2 to 10% for doing that for you. And obviously, you're getting paid less than the invoice. However, you're getting paid now rather than having to wait for it, and there's a cost associated.
Debtor days. Sometimes customers make you wait for your money. Debtor days are the average number of days that you have to wait. As your business grows, it becomes vital to keep this number low.
So that comment I made around waiting 30 days or 60 days or 90 days, ideally, you just want to make sure that it's as low as possible.
Creditor days, the opposite of debtor days, the average time that you delay paying your suppliers, try to pay your bills in order of importance to make sure you don't get caught out.
So similarly, the best thing for you is to fix extended periods of payment where you actually do 30 days. So the ideal scenario is that you get paid 30 days or 15 days and you pay your suppliers 45 days or 60 days. That's the ideal scenario.
It is, but I think for me personally, I have peace of mind when you just get the payments done.
Yeah, but that's of course it is, and that's a more of a moral or ethical approach.
No, it's not even either.
No, it is.
Actually,
it is
more about just not having debt is always a worry.
Yeah,
so if we pay our suppliers, we actually initiate the policy to pay our suppliers on a weekly basis. So each week on a Monday, everything that they've supplied for the previous week, it's all paid, done and dusted, out the way. So we know exactly where we are. It's not your cash flow, your account system is not a false pretense. You know, if you've got £10 in your bank, that yes, everyone's been paid, and that £10 is a real kind of £10 without it being owed to other individuals.
That is moral and ethical, Jack. That's not good business practice.
No,
I'm just saying, as in that isn't from a principle of business practice, and just for the purposes of clarity, that isn't good business practice. All of the biggest corporates, all of the biggest organizations, what they do is they tend to get paid early and pay late. That allows them to maintain and retain larger amounts of cash and helps cash flow within their business. That's good business. What isn't good business is actually paying for products before you've used them or recovered the money from using them. Well, that's a very ethical thing to do. So well done.
Credit rating. A score that companies can use to see how reliable you are at paying your debts. If you habitually pay your bills late and you have maybe 1 or 2 court judgments made against your business, then your credit ratings will be poor and people may ask for cash up front.
Quick ratio. This is the easiest and most important accounting ratio to watch. The formula to calculate it is debt owed to you plus cash in your bank or amount you owe. So if you are owed £10,000, your bank account has minus £1,000 and you owe your creditors £6,000, then your quick ratio is 10,000 minus 1,000 divided by 6,000 equals 1.5. If this all sounds too complicated, don't worry, you don't have to do it all yourself. Not only will a good accounting software do much of this for you, but there are people you can hire who specialize in keeping books for others. For more information and to talk to the SME Centre of Excellence about your accounting services, reach out to them because there's a wonderful range of accountants and specialists all there ready to demystify all of this. And that was the business topic of the week.
Well, I think it's been really, really important financial advice and something that anyone in business needs to it needs to be at the forefront of whatever business they're looking to get into, because without this and without a good understanding of it, you're most likely going to find yourself into big trouble later on.
Oh, without a doubt, Jeff. It's all of these tips, as I say, are there and they're available for you to access. The key thing is that you need to ideally get the right support at the right time to help you grow. And if you're not an accountant, trying to become an accountant isn't the ideal use of your time. So reach out either to the SME Centre of Excellence or indeed anybody else who is an accounting expert and get them to do it for you so you can concentrate on what you're good at.
Absolutely.
This is interesting, Jaff. UK inflation rises at fastest rate for 40 years as food costs jump.
Yeah.
So tell me, because you're at the cold face of this.
I think we've been noticing this for the last kind of 6 to 8 weeks. As soon as the Ukraine war started, all of a sudden you begin to understand and realize that they're one of the biggest grain manufacturers between Ukraine and Russia. I can't remember statistically, but they provide so much of the world's wheat. I think that's been the catalyst for most things, and I think other things have been obviously the knock-on effect on fuel and gas and energy and transportation costs going up and this, that, and other. Obviously, the people that are transporting food from A to B, they're going to charge more money. So we've already seen huge increases in the cost over the last 8 weeks or so. And we're going to slowly have every operator is going to have no choice but to put cost up, whether it's a supermarket, whether it's a takeaways, whether it's a restaurants, because if they don't, they're going to all go bust. So the cost of living for food, certainly for sure, is going to go up and up and up. I mean, we don't have really the time to touch upon so many other things that I personally think that we should be encouraged to do and we're not, as in, you know, if you have the ability to grow food at home in your gardens and things, this, that, and other allotments, you should really take advantage of all of those. But there's no encouragement towards anything on those lines. So it's a matter of going to the supermarkets, buying local. But again, reorganizing your budgets, understanding that the food costs are going to go up a hell of a lot. And I don't think this spiral is going to change anytime soon.
Yeah, and I agree. And it is very much around, it's becoming more harder and harder. However, I must admit that I've really struggled with people going on strike and the justification of that.
Yeah.
And disrupting things like people's travel. Earlier this week, Jalf.
Oh, even the planes, you can't go. If you go somewhere these days, you're always going to have some issues on airports with airlines, and it's a constant. It's certainly a world that is very, very volatile.
It's crazy, absolutely crazy. Anyway, you've been listening to Ammar and
Jalf
live on our weekly radio show together for a change.
Today, 7 days a week, Spice
We'll be back
FM,
next week.
98.8 FM.
Newly elected Wakefield MP Simon Lightfoot has hit out at the government for their lack of future plans. This comes as Labour won the by-election.
Your government has no ideas, no plan to address the big issues facing our country. It's not acceptable.